start, we wanted to start by like some of the issues that Marina and Dario are emphasizing in the book, and it's they can't represent us, and then how also an idea or a way of doing and living politics without focusing on political representation becomes difficult to represent, no? Because people want big events or big actions leading towards an endpoint, no? And so through these years, from the very beginning of Occupy, but the same like in different parts of the world, what we feel is that there is always this dependence on public opinion, like movements are alive or are dead, is Occupy dead, is M15 over, or so we were kind of thinking that we also something learned from the movements, but that we need to keep training ourselves is on how to perceive and figure political change that is not based on the habits of media and spectacle, no? How, and this is something related to, in a way, what we started to see in Occupy as one of the many cases, but how the idea of the commons as something that we need to build in everyday practices was central to these movements, no? Because the idea was not, so we do something in order to then take over a state. The idea was, no, we need to be able to go from Sukoti everywhere, to take Sukoti to the everyday life, no? To connect to the people with whom we live and the neighborhoods. And so when we started organizing around the figure of the commons, the idea was to create conversations and discussions and encounters and think of the commons as something that goes from the idea of history we have, our common histories, or there is a commons, but then also the problems like the debtor, no? And then strike debt emerged as a figure that was very connected to the 99%, no? The idea that we all share debt, life as a form of debt, no? Education, health, and so this also another common, let's say, thread of all the movements are like the centering or displacement of the idea of the organizers, the professional organizers, no? Like to take politics and political change to everybody as something we do, not that we wait for someone to organize us, no? That specifically like in the US, it's very strong, no? How from the 80s on, the whole business around the NGOs, the non-profits, started to kind of constitute a monopoly over politics, no? So with the assemblies, with the meetings, encounters, there's this idea that politics is something that concerns us in a very micro political level, no? So something like also with the idea of commons was to redefine the public, no? Not to just divide politics as the public sphere, the private, but the idea of necessary reconfiguration of what is public, no? And that's something that cannot just be depending on the state.